It was hard for me because I lost 2 cats in the fire, and no one wanted to tell me the truth. And I kept thinking about my cats until finally, they told me they didn't want to tell me at first because I was,
right,
in recovery. What got me through, all I can honestly tell you, is my own sense of survival. I believe that everyone's got inside of them that source.
right.
Because people said, I wouldn't know what I would do if I were in your position. I said, yes, you would. I said, but you won't know that until you get there.
Right.
You don't know until it
so
happens.
Something just kicks in?
I think that it's so embedded, it's in your persona, it's in your person, in your persona, that people, put limits and boundaries on themselves and said, I could never do this, I could never wear that, I could never take that job, I could never, you don't know. You don't know until you're there.
So besides this, how else have you used that? Kind of, you don't know?
In whatever I'm trying to attain, in my goals, my ambition, theatrically speaking, putting myself now in situations where people have more credentials than me, do not have 2nd and 3rd degree burns,
right,
are younger than me. And if I were to stand there and look at it, I'd say, oh, why bother doing this? I mean, my gosh, they're 20 years younger than me, and they look better than me, and they haven't gone through it. But you know what? This is my life. It's my goal. I got through it. The universe, or who or whatever is up there,
right.
I'm still here.
Do you feel like you can
here.
get through anything, though, if you got through that?
Exactly. Exactly. I have to remember and voluntarily tell myself that when those little doubts creep into your mind of negativity, which we all go through that,
right,
that I have to recall. That's why I want to forget that I'm burned and move on, but I don't want to forget what I went through. Because in those times of not being able to deal with, where you make up
right,
excuses, I want to say, Joe, remember when you were in the hospital. Remember how it felt.
Is that a motivating factor or something?
Very much so. Because that tells me, don't ever think that you can't do this. Don't start to have those doubts. Don't start to think that you're too this, you're too that.
Right.
Because you were there.
Do you also think that you have maybe nothing to lose? I mean, by going after this, whereas maybe before you wouldn't have, now it's kind of like, well, what have I got to lose? I mean, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I can go into something else.
I don't want to really take that attitude, I have nothing to lose, because that's already that's like saying I'll try, the word try.
Right.
Try already is going down the road of defeat. So I don't even want to take that attitude.
So what do you say then?
That
you're going to do it?
I'll tell you, when I left the hospital and I had no place to go to, I was living, I went to a motel. After the motels, I finally moved into a place.
Because your original place was burned.
It was burned.
Yeah.
It was gutted and burned. I couldn't go back there. After about a year, I was living in a small courtyard apartment building. I was 44 at the time of the fire.
Mm-hmm.
In May was my birthday. I turned 44. The fire was at the end of May. Mm. My apartment number was 44. When I saw that, I realized that this was something that I was supposed to pay attention to. Obviously, I pay attention to it because of what happened,
right,
but there was something that it was the end and it was the beginning.
Right.
And that's basically, I keep that in my mind at all times. And I remember that my life was spared for a reason. It's taught me what I'm capable of dealing with. Mm-hmm. And that's basically how I...
When somebody first sees you from the outside, what do you think the biggest misconception is? Or maybe when they saw you initially after the fire?
What their misconception is? They just didn't know. I think it's the fact that they didn't know. It was the uncertainty. Whether it's... First they look at it, I mean, my face... Frankenstein looked better than me. And I'm not trying to be funny. That's how bad my entire face was covered. I had welts under my eyes. The burns, my face was covered with burns. So people, you know, when they looked at me, were like, you know, they don't want to look,
Right.
you know, which is understandable. You know, little children are afraid because you look like you're a monster from hell. But I understood that. But
how do you deal with that emotionally, like having to go to the grocery store and you get these people not knowing, but they're still looking at you or staring? I mean, how do you deal with that emotionally? What do you tell yourself?
That I am what I am. That's it. That's it. Because the fire, it may have stripped away a lot of things, but it also gave me this attitude that this is me, and there's nowhere to go now except up. And there's no pretense, because the fire literally burned away any kind of disguise, any kind of...
Do you think it gave you more confidence, more self-esteem?
Indirectly, yes. More than I ever had before, which is very odd.
In what way?
Because now it's truthful. Now it's me.
Right.
It's me. You have to get through the burns to me.
Yeah, because it's interesting because you said it stripped away everything, and you have. I mean, it takes you that. Maybe it takes that for you to really look at yourself, or maybe it did, and now, I mean, now maybe you feel like there's nothing you can't do. Did you have that same attitude before the fire?
No, not at all. I was shy. I did not have the confidence. I was not self-assured. Not at all.
Interesting that it takes something like that to give that to you, though. So what do you think you learned most from having this happen to you?
I think truly what I am capable of, and who I am, and what I'm capable of as a person. I think before I was so involved in trying to be somebody, trying to fit in, trying to find a slot, you know, and with the fire, I can't wake up tomorrow morning and say, you know what, I don't want to have this anymore, I'm going to tear it off.
Right.
It's here to stay.
And you have to accept
and this is
right.
me, and you know what, I'm comfortable with it. That's the most important thing. People are walking around trying to, and I'm not making a judgment on anybody,
right.
but people are trying, you know, they do things to change themselves, to make them, for whatever reason, to fill a void within themselves. I didn't ask for this, it happened. But this is me. And now I am comfortable because I had to really go deep within myself to find a secure place, because this isn't going to change.
What do you want people to learn from you? Now that you've told us what you've learned, what do you want other people to learn?
That you may be very busy on a day-to-day basis with chores that you set for yourself, that you think and may be important. But life is very precious.
Right.
And whatever adversity comes into your life, turn it around and make it something meaningful.
Thank you for joining us today, John.
My pleasure.
Thanks for joining us today on Jessica. If you have any questions about Johanna or what we talked about today, you can email me in the email that will follow. And keep in mind, everybody, that a tragedy doesn't have to actually affect you in order for you to better your lives. Have a good day. Thanks. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I'm so sorry.